about it now.
Yeah.
Big chip pan on the fire.
And would that be filled with dripping?
Yeah.
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 And I bet it took about 2 hours to melt.
No, not really, gee. But anyway, she used to do all her baking in the oven at the side of it as well.
Yeah.
And then eventually we got a gas ring, just one gas ring on the end of a piece of pipe.
Right.
Before we got a gas cooker. We didn't have a telly till 1956, 57, something like that.
Do you remember the first thing you watched?
Well, we watched television before that because next door's had one. So we used to go around next door. And the highlight for us was Horse of the Year show.
Right.
Yeah. And then my mother would knock on the wall. Time for bed. Get up. No.
Yeah. What sort of games did you used to play?
Outdoor. Indoor. Outdoor.
Outdoor.
We used to spend a lot of time outside. We used to play Realio.
What's that?
Well, you'd one would hide their eyes and everybody would go and hide, and then they'd go and look for you. And if you could get back to the lamppost before they saw you, that was Realio. You know?
Right.
But yeah.
So it's like hide and seek with the...
Yeah, we called it Realio.
Yeah.
And then when we were younger, we used to, and still can, if you smell tar, we used to play on the roads when it was hot and burst all the tar bubbles. And then we'd play hopscotch.
How do you play hopscotch?
Well, we'd like they still do today. A lot of schools have got hopscotch painted on the school yards now.
Have they? Right,
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you mark out a space with like a I don't know, like a graph, and you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or you start here 1, 2, 3, and you just jump between the numbers and back again.
So do you have to throw something up to...
I think so.
Yeah.
And pick it up on your way and back again. And then the other thing we did was where we lived in Mosnook, there was only one house after us, and then there was fields, and so we used to play in the fields, especially when they cut the corn, playing the stooks, and then we'd rearrange all the straw and the hay and make houses in the fields, you know, play house in the fields.
So, did you play skip? Did you skip it?
Oh yeah.
And did you sing rhymes and things?
Yeah.
Do you remember any?
Cool.
At all or not?
Oh, I'd have to search deep for that. I probably do, but I can't just think offhand. We used to do a lot of skipping in the schoolyard.
Right.
You know.
And what sort of games skipping games were there?
Well, just as you say, rhymes to it.
Yeah.
And run in and run out and jump over and run under and.
Right, so you'd have 1 or 2 people holding the skipping rope.
Yeah.
And turning it round, and you'd get people running in. Yeah. And then out again, and somebody else would come.
I hated games at school. I didn't mind skipping.
What sort of games did you do in the lessons? In the proper lessons?
At school lessons, they used to have racing for starters. I was always last because I intended to be, because I didn't want to be picked again. And we used to play netball, and rounders. But I hated games. If it was raining, we used to go to the British Legion and do country dancing.
Right.
That suited me.
And so what sort of dances did you do there?
Dashing White Sergeant, military two-step, things like that, country dancing.
And did you have a record player for the, or did you have somebody play an instrument? Or?
I think we must have had a record player, I think so. Yeah. But that was from school. But as a teenager, the British Legion had what they called the bob-up. Have you heard people talk about that before?
I haven't, no, what's that?
Well, it was on a Sunday night, and you go, and it was at the time in the early 50s, or middle 50s, you used to go jiving. I was a jiver.
Yeah.
And it was called the bob-up because it cost you a shilling, a bob.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So it's
And
the
that
local,
was...
the local hop, as
Yes.
it were, yeah.
That was very, very popular.
Yeah.
On a Sunday night. And I don't know why it was Sunday night. I think perhaps the adults had it on a Saturday night. And they used, on a Saturday night, I think there used to be a three-piece band. But we didn't get the three-piece band, we danced to records.
Right.
Yeah.
So who was...
Such as Peggy Sue.
I was going to say, who was in the charts when you were listening to records?
To be honest, I've never been a great person for charts.
Right.
Or, I like me dance music. And like I say, Peggy Sue and things like that. But I've never been one who said, oh, you know, never had a crush on a pop star.
No.
I like music from musicals, but other than that, I'm not a great lover of.
Yeah.
Never been a fan of pop music. Still not. Can't stand it. Can't understand it. But then again, at home, we didn't have any means of music.
No.
We had a piano at one spell. I don't know where my mother got that from.
Did anybody play it?
No.
Or not? No, just
I used to plonk.
Yeah.
I can still play God Save the Gracious Queen. But we never had any music. The only thing we had was radio.
Yeah.
We didn't have books.
No.
Me and my sister don't read books. We read, but we don't read books because we never had any.
Why was that?
I think there was lots of other priorities beyond books when you've 6 kids. Simple as that. And the school had a so-called library, but you didn't bring them home.
No.
You know. So no, we never read books. Never read classics or anything like that at all. I had a spell a few years ago where I'd read, but now I don't have the patience. I like what I call bitter reading. I read bits of this and bits of that, but I can't sit down and, like a lot of people do, go on holiday and take a book. No.
Yeah. When you were leaving school, did you get any careers advice?
Just go and get a job.
So there's nothing to say, you know, if you want to do this, then you've got to apply to such and such a thing. No. So what job did you do when you left school?
When I left school, my mother took me for an interview to Broadbent's in Southport, which is now British Home Stores on Chapel Street there. And I worked on the perfumery counter because the lady up the road, Hazel, who I still know, and her sister, she worked there, and I always liked what she did, and she always smelled nice and what have you. So I went to Broadbent's, and they said, well, where would I like to work? Not just me, there was quite a number of us from our school went to Broadbent's, and I said I wanted to be in perfumery, but I've always bitten my nails and still do.
Right.
So when I went for my interview, I wore gloves because all the people on the perfumery had big talons. So I wore gloves.
Yeah.
So they couldn't see.
So did you get the job?
Yes, I got a job.
Yeah.
I started on £2, 7 and 6 a week.
And what was that good for you? You know.
Well, that's all that was on offer. I
Yeah.
mean, when you think about that, we paid 7 and 6 a week for a contract to Southport and back on the train. You had your lunches to buy, you had your clothes to buy, and I was, in actual fact, provided with an overall. And anybody else that worked there had to provide their black skirt and black cardies, whatever you. But I got an overall with working on perfumery.
Right.
So you'd had to provide, and your dinners to buy, and then your mother took off you and give you a bit back. You never kept your own money.
No.
You had to tip it up at home. And after 2 years, my sister then had left school, and she went working in a sewing factory in St Luke's, sewing. And where I was doing 5.5 days a week, she was doing 5 days a week and getting more money. So I applied for a job there, but I was too old then to take a apprenticeship like she'd done to learn to sew. And I went in as a finisher in as much as I did overlocking and blind stitching and buttonholes and things like that.
Right.
I wasn't taught to sew as such, although I do sew and I've do alterations and all sorts. So I went there. But even when I got married at 20. And I was earning then about £4 something a week. And my mother would still take all your money by the time you paid your train fare, and we packed up those days. We took our dinner with us in the factory. But she still took your money off you. And the day before I got married on the Saturday, she still took my money off me.
Right to the very end.
Right to the very end.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only one.
No.
She did it to my sister and my friend Jean, and her mother did it to her. So it was the done thing.
Yeah. So how much would she give you at the
10 shilling.
10 shilling, and that had to do for you
everything.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but your train fare had already come out of that.
Take my train fare out of that, yeah. And then she'd give me the 10 shilling.
Yeah. So you had to buy everything you wanted after that.
Yeah.
Came out of that 10 shillings.
And then you were expected to buy your own stockings then and whatever,
So it must have been. How much did your mother have then from you?
About £3.50, I think.
Right. So when you got married, it must have been a bit of a shock to some degree not to have that money coming in.
For her, yeah.
Yeah.
But don't forget, after I'd left, there was only 2 left at home.
Yeah.
Because the others had all gone.
Right.
The 4 elder ones had all gone.
Yeah.
You see, my eldest sister married at 17, so she was well gone. O'Brien went in the military police, but he didn't go till he was 21, because he was doing an apprenticeship. Colin went when he was 18, and he went in the Air Force. So they'd all left home,
Yeah.
Then I went at 20, and our Pam followed me 6 months later. And my brother's still at home.
Right.
Never got married.
No.
And he's still at home in my mother's house.
Yeah. Do you remember going on holiday? Or did you not go on holiday?
We didn't go on holiday as such, no.
Yeah.
We had days out.
Yeah.
The best holiday we ever had was when you could buy a runabout ticket on the railway. And it was 10 and 6 for an adult for the week. And I don't know whether it was £1 or £2 for kids. So there was our Pam and me and our Adrian and my mum and dad. And had a week on we could go all up north on the train with these runabout tickets. And we went as far as Coniston and Barrow-in-Furness.
Yeah.
We got to Coniston, and it absolutely pickled with rain all the way there. And you took your own food and ate on the train. And
So you'd come back home at night, would you?
we never got off the train, it was too wet, we just turned around and come back. We never got off the train to there. And we went to Barrow, but it was such a long journey again, we didn't get off the train, we just come straight back. So you just had the train journey.
It's just a train journey, yeah.
We went to Morecambe and we went to Blackpool.
Yeah.
So we did get off there. But the other 2, and...
So what was Morecambe and Blackpool like in those days?
Morecambe very much as it is now, very quiet really.
Yeah.
And Blackpool was it was quite busy.
Yeah.
But we never went. We sat on the front, but we never went on the beach because we didn't have beach clothes.
Yeah.
But that was really. Other than that, we go on the train to Southport and go to Botanic Gardens. Now, my mother had our Adrian in the pram at the time, so I assumed we walked it from Chapel Street to Botanic Gardens with the pram.
That's a fair way up, isn't it?
That's a fair way, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'd go to Prince's Park sometimes. But to get to Prince's Park, you've got to go over those bridges. And I have a fear of going over bridges with holes in.
Right.
Right from being little. Oh, we once went to New Brighton. That was an only once trip, and of course we had to get on the ferry to go to New Brighton, and again the slats and water underneath, and it still gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah.
And we hadn't taken food that day. We were going to have something to eat, but the only place we could find open was a Chinese. Well, Chinese was Chinese to us, but we had to go in because there was nowhere else. And my mother always said, we went to that eye ping pong. And it's always been the same.
Yeah.
We went to the I Ping Pong Chinese restaurant in New Brighton. Never went again.
No.
No.
Because when was this then?
Probably when I was about 12, 13.
So you're talking about 1953, 54, something like that, yeah. Chinese restaurants, were they
Well,
few and far between?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I started working in Southport, there was a few in Southport
Yeah.
in 1955, 56. Because I used to go and have a 3-course meal for 2 and 6 in the Chinese restaurant.
Right.
Yeah.
So what sort of things were you eating in those days?
Not a clue, can't remember.
You can't remember?
There'd be a soup and a sweet and whatever
Yeah,
in
so
between.
something else.
Yeah, but yeah.
Right. Do you remember, well, you've told me about transport to some degree, cars, buses and trains. Did you, well, I suppose you used buses and trains, did you?
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Well, if we were going south, we'd use the train. The only bus we ever went on, I can't recall going into Burscough ever so much. I remember going to Liverpool once. My mother took us to Liverpool when I was about 13, and I can still see the coat that she bought me.
Yeah.
It was a 3-way swagger coat.
Go on, what's a 3-way swagger coat?
Well, it's a loose coat, but you can wear it with your belt round it,
Right.
or you can wear it with the belt round half of it and the back loose.
Right.
So it's a three-way swagger coat. But my lasting memory of that, and it was from CNA's in Liverpool, my lasting memory of that is coming back on the train, and there was somebody sat on the train, and I didn't know what it was, whether it was a fella or whether it was a woman. And they were total aliens to us because we didn't know what it was all about.
Yeah.
It turned out it was a fella dressed as a woman.
Right.
But to us it was alien.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
So what can you tell me of Burscough, where you were growing up? What sort of shops did you have in the area?
Oh, well. If you start at the bottom of the bridge here on the left-hand side, there were Seddons, which you've seen on there. General shop. But in 1974, they're just building new buildings there now.
Right.
But in 1974-ish, 75-ish, a wagon run into that and demolished it. And some friends of ours lived in the flat above. And their bed was hanging out the wall for years before it was pulled down. And then they lived next door to us after that, in East Park. Yeah, so there was 7, post office, chemists, Jarnock's the chemist, and then the bank, just as there is now. And then what's Ramage's now was Eastwood's, and then what's the computer shop was Ronnie Walton's.
What did Ronnie Walton sell?
Newsagents, toys, prams, pots and crocks, you name it, you know, sweets and tobacconists. And his mother and father had run it before him, Ronnie Walton.
Right.
And his son Jeff Walton lives at New Lane now. And Sheila Walton, she's a doctor. Where we go from there? TSB Bank. TSB Bank. And then there was different things at different times. Years ago there was a men's outfitters next door, and then it changed to a washerette shop, you know, and then it changed to all different things before it became Tyson's, the newsagents again, and now it's empty and it's going to be opened as a betting shop, as though we need another betting shop, right? And then across the alleyway there was a greengrocer's, Culshaw's greengrocers. And then next to that there was Mr. Ford's, little sweets and tobacconists again, Mr. and Mrs. Ford. And then where Graham's is now, it was Mrs. Smith's. And that's my earliest memory, is Mrs. Smith's shop. And then next to that, what's now an Italian, was Littler's chip shop, Mrs. Littler. And then next to that there was another general shop called Rushton's. And then what was on the end? Can't remember what was in the bottom. What's now Hilton's Carpets. Can't think what was there. After Rushton's. I don't know. gone. But at this side, at the bottom of the bridge, on the right-hand side, there was Danny Hunters, the newsagents. We many years later ran that as the newsagents, as managers. Next door there was a little wool shop that's just closed.
Is this the one in the corner where just by the church?
No, we're at this end.
Oh right, okay.
As you turn into Lord Street
Yeah,
by the wharf,
yeah.
the newsagents on the corner there,
Right.
that was Danny Hunters.
Right.
Then there was a little wool shop
Yeah.
next door. Then there was Hankins, the butchers. Then there was a dress shop. I can see them. Can't think of the names. The dress shop. Then there was another bank next door to that. The dress shop is now the betting shop, but there was then another bank, and then there was Irwin's, which was another general shop, and then there was a confectioner's, and then another shop on the end, which Ronnie Walton then took over and put prams in.
Right.
But after that, it's been a washerette, and it's been a Thresher's. It's now a chemist's. And then next door to that, there was the Mrs. Dutton, two Mrs. Duttons, and they had a general come paper shop, come greengrocer's shop. And my brothers used to take papers for them. But if ever they couldn't go, I used to go and take papers in their place. And you go in the back room, and I mean, we ran a newsagents, and they take all your returns back, or most of your returns. Those days they didn't take returns back.
No.
And when you went in the back room, there was papers as high as you could see. Yeah, Mrs. Dutton's. And then there was Jimmy Smith's, the butcher's, next door to that. And then another bank on the end. And then the Royal Coaching House. And then in the corner there was Ashton's Greengrocers. Mr. Rowley's, the little sweet shop. Mr. Rowley was the policeman special.
Right.
And he's at the front of those walks.
Yeah.
With his hat on. And they used to be open. The only shop that was open on a Sunday was Mr. Rowley's. And you could go in the village on a Sunday afternoon and go in Mr. Rowley's. And they had a coal fire in the corner, at the back. And he used to have a big black kettle on it. And you get hot Vimto.
Yeah.
Little hot Vimto.
Yeah.
Then next door to that, just round the corner there was Nellie Riley's. And it's still Nellie Riley's. There's been all sorts in there. But you still hear people say, you know, Nellie Riley's. And Nellie Riley, it was... she sold wool and thread and buttons and stockings and all sorts of things.
Right.
But Nellie Riley's it will always be. And then there was always a hairdresser's next door, and Ruth's is still there. But Ruth and the person that had it before him, you can say, I would say from about 1920s, there's only been two people in that shop, and that's people that had it before, and Ruth. Ruth's been there 50 years, I think.
Yeah.
And then what's the pet shop now? So what was there? Don't remember what was in the pet shop. But that's the main bit, what we call the village.
Yeah. And that's Burscough Bridge.
Burscough Bridge.
As opposed to Burscough Town, which is
Yes.
further.
I mean, you still got the run up here.
Yeah.
Where you've got the bike shop is now. And,
Yeah.
And the chip shop was always a chip shop. And that where the florist is now, that used to be a hairdresser's.
Right.
And,
So it seemed well served for groceries and various other
yeah.
things in its time. Yeah. Plenty there.
And this side, at one stage when I was a teenager, on this corner at the Canal Bridge, going into Mill Lane, there was a shoe shop.
Yeah.
We had a shoe shop, and the chemist has always been a chemist. But I can't remember what was on this main drag.
Right.
Is it funny how?
I know. Right, we're coming to about the end of the tape, so
Right.
what I'd like you to do, if possible, is read this piece, which we give to everybody, if you can manage it. If you read it out loud, that's a bit...
The northwest of England has many interesting dialects, although some people have no idea about all the differences. If someone from the south saw an episode of Emmerdale on television, they might think that all the actors came from Yorkshire. After all, that is where the programme comes from. But that's not the case. At least 3 come from Lancashire. The production company looks for actors who sound northern. Maybe they think that with luck, no one will notice. Apparently, Lancashire folk make good singers too, because their accent is musical. I have to say that it wouldn't take many fingers to count on how many good singers I know. Accents have changed a lot over time. When I was little and sitting on a chair doing nothing, my father would always say, "Stir thee, son, and put the kettle on." And if I moaned that I hadn't grown enough, I would be told to put some horse muck in my boots. There are so many expressions that have disappeared, along with all the old houses, mills and the factories that have been pulled down and turned into flats or car parks. Perhaps television has brought some problems. We're used to listening to all sorts of accents, but really good ones are rare. We are moving around more as well. 80 years ago, people would stay in the same place all their lives. But now, it isn't unusual to change jobs and houses several times. Travel is cheap too. Many years ago, it took months and months of saving to pay for a holiday, but now it costs buttons to go quite long distances, which might be a curse for those who like to stay at home. You only have to look at all the holiday adverts to see that purses must be deep to afford the prices. Given a choice, some people might want to get rid of their accent. They think it is likely to count against them when they're faced with a job interview and is somehow not quite nice. But most of us are proud of our accent and don't want it to disappear forever, leaving everyone speaking exactly the same.
Sheila, thank you very much indeed for talking to the Lancashire Society.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.